Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into something truly transformative: The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. Now, if you've ever felt like you're not good enough, if you've struggled with perfectionism, or if you've been afraid to show your true self to the world, this book is going to speak directly to your heart. This isn't just another self help book sitting on your shelf, it's a roadmap to living with courage, compassion, and authentic connection. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, maybe even grab a notebook, because we're about to explore wisdom that could change how you see yourself forever. Long pause. Let me start with a story that Brené Brown shares. She talks about how she used to be a researcher who studied other people's emotions, but kept her own vulnerability locked away, believing that if she could just control everything, predict every outcome, and be perfect enough, she'd be safe from pain. But then life happened, as it always does, and she realized that her quest for certainty and control was actually the thing keeping her from the connection and joy she desperately wanted. That's when she embarked on what she calls her breakdown spiritual awakening, a journey that led to over a decade of research on shame, vulnerability, and what makes some people live with their whole hearts while others hold back. And here's what she discovered: the people who live the most fulfilling lives aren't the ones who have it all figured out, aren't the ones with perfect Instagram feeds or flawless resumes. They're the ones who have learned to embrace their imperfections, to be vulnerable, and to show up authentically, even when it's scary. Brown calls this wholehearted living, and it's built on three essential foundations. Long pause. The first foundation is courage. But not the Hollywood version of courage, not jumping off cliffs or fighting dragons. This is the quiet, everyday courage to tell your story with your whole heart, to admit when you don't know something, to say, "I'm struggling" when you're struggling, and to ask for help when you need it. It's the courage to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself, the courage to set boundaries, and the courage to try new things, even when you might fail. Think about the last time you wanted to share something personal but held back, or when you wanted to try something new but fear stopped you. That's where courage lives, in those small, vulnerable moments. The second foundation is compassion. Now, most of us are pretty good at showing compassion to others. If your best friend came to you beating themselves up over a mistake, you'd probably wrap them in kindness, remind them they're human, tell them everyone messes up. But what do you say to yourself when you make that same mistake? Brown discovered that wholehearted people have learned to speak to themselves with the same kindness they'd show a good friend. They've learned that self-compassion isn't selfish, it's essential. Because here's the thing, you can't give what you don't have. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, constantly feeling not good enough, that's the energy you'll bring to your relationships, your work, your life. But when you learn to be gentle with yourself, when you learn to say, "I'm learning" instead of "I'm failing," everything changes. The third foundation is connection. And this might be the most important one, because we are wired for connection. It's not just something we want, it's something we need to survive and thrive. But here's the catch: real connection, the kind that feeds your soul, can only happen when we're willing to be seen, truly seen, for who we really are. Not the highlight reel version of ourselves, not the version we think others want to see, but the messy, imperfect, beautifully human version. Brown says that connection is the energy that exists between people, when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. And that kind of connection requires vulnerability. Long pause. Now let's dive into the 10 guideposts Brown gives us for wholehearted living. These aren't just nice ideas, they're practical principles that can transform how you live. Guidepost number 1. Cultivate authenticity and let go of what people think. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. It's choosing to be real over being perfect, to be honest about your struggles, to stop performing for others' approval, and to make choices based on your values, not other people's expectations. Brown says, authenticity is not something we have or don't have. It's a practice, a conscious choice of how we want to live. Are we going to choose authenticity and be imperfect, or are we going to choose perfection and be inauthentic? And here's what she learned. People who live authentically have learned to say, "What other people think of me is none of my business." Guidepost number 2. Cultivate self-compassion and let go of perfectionism. Now, this is a big one, because so many of us have been taught that perfectionism equals high standards, that it's what drives excellence. But Brown's research reveals something different. Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. It's a shield. We think if we can just be perfect, look perfect, and do everything perfectly, we can avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. But perfectionism is actually correlated with depression, anxiety, addiction, and life paralysis. The fear of failing, of not being good enough, becomes so strong that we either don't try at all or we exhaust ourselves trying to be something that's impossible. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend. It's recognizing that mistakes and failures are part of the human experience, not evidence that you're defective. Kristin Neff, a researcher Brown references, identifies three elements of self-compassion: self-kindness versus self-judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification with our emotions. Guidepost number 3. Cultivate resilience and let go of numbing and powerlessness. Life is going to knock you down. That's not pessimism, that's reality. The question isn't whether you'll face adversity. It's how you'll respond when you do. Resilient people don't bounce back from difficult experiences unchanged, they bounce forward. They integrate the experience, learn from it, and often come out stronger and more compassionate. But many of us, when faced with difficult emotions, choose to numb instead of feel. We numb with work, with shopping, with social media, with substances, with busyness. Brown discovered that we cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful emotions, we also numb joy, gratitude, happiness. We can't have light without dark. Resilient people feel their emotions, all of them. They don't let emotions drive the bus, but they acknowledge them, honor them, and learn from them. Guidepost number 4. Cultivate gratitude and joy, and let go of scarcity and fear of the dark. Brown made a surprising discovery in her research. People who described themselves as joyful actively practiced gratitude. But it wasn't just any gratitude, it was specific. Concrete gratitude for specific things, people, and experiences. She also discovered that joyful people were not afraid of vulnerability. In fact, they leaned into joy, even though they knew it could be taken away. They didn't hedge their bets by waiting for the other shoe to drop. Many of us live in scarcity. Never enough time, never enough money, never enough rest, never enough love. This mindset keeps us trapped in fear, constantly looking over our shoulder, waiting for disaster. Gratitude practices help us shift from scarcity to abundance, from fear to appreciation. When we practice gratitude, we're essentially training our brain to notice what's working, what's beautiful, what's possible. Guidepost number 5. Cultivate intuition and trusting faith and let go of the need for certainty. We live in a culture that worships certainty. We want guarantees, 5-year plans, insurance for everything. But the truth is, uncertainty is the only certainty there is. Wholehearted people have learned to cultivate their intuition, that inner knowing that guides us when logic falls short. They've learned to trust themselves, their instincts, their inner wisdom. Faith, in this context, doesn't necessarily mean religious faith, though it can. It means believing in something larger than yourself, having hope even when you can't see the whole staircase, trusting that there's meaning and purpose even in the difficult times. Brown defines faith as a place of mystery, where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. Guidepost number 6. Cultivate creativity and let go of comparison. Creativity isn't just for artists, musicians, or writers. It's the birthright of every human being. It's how we express our souls, solve problems, and contribute something unique to the world. But comparison kills creativity. When we're constantly measuring our inside against others' outsides, when we're scrolling through social media, comparing our rough draft to someone else's highlight reel, we lose connection to our own creative voice. Brown says that the only unique contribution we can make in this world is to be ourselves. Our creativity flows from our authenticity, from our willingness to be vulnerable, from our courage to share our perspective, even if it's different from everyone else's. And here's something beautiful. Creativity doesn't require talent or training. It requires courage. The courage to show up, to be seen, to be vulnerable enough to share what's inside you. Guidepost number 7. Cultivate play and rest and let go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. We live in a culture that has made exhaustion a status symbol. We brag about how busy we are, how little sleep we got, how much we're juggling, as if our worth is measured by our output. But Brown's research shows that wholehearted people have learned to play and rest without guilt. They understand that play isn't frivolous, it's essential for creativity, learning, and joy. Play is described as activities that are intrinsically motivated, fun, and pleasurable. It's doing something simply because it brings you joy, not because it's productive or useful. And rest, real rest, not just collapsing in front of the TV when you're exhausted, but intentional rest, restorative rest, is equally important. It's when our minds process, integrate, and restore. Your worth isn't determined by your productivity. You don't have to earn the right to rest, to play, to simply be. Guidepost number 8. Cultivate calm and stillness and let go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Many of us have become so accustomed to anxiety that we mistake it for excitement, for motivation, for just how life is. But chronic anxiety isn't normal, and it's not necessary. Calm isn't about the absence of noise or activity, it's an internal state. It's the ability to stay grounded, centered, present, even when life gets chaotic. Stillness is different from calm. It's about creating space for quiet, for reflection, for connecting with yourself and something larger than yourself. It's in stillness that we often find our answers, our peace, our direction. Brown emphasizes that both calm and stillness are practices, skills we can develop. They don't just happen. We have to cultivate them, through meditation, through time in nature, through whatever practices help us find our center. Guidepost number 9. Cultivate meaningful work and let go of self-doubt and supposed to. Meaningful work doesn't necessarily mean changing careers or finding your one true calling. It means bringing meaning to whatever work you're doing. It's about service, contribution, connection to something larger than yourself. But self-doubt and the weight of other people's expectations, all those supposed tos, can keep us from pursuing what lights us up. We're supposed to choose practical over passionate, safe over meaningful, what others expect over what our hearts are calling us toward. Brown encourages us to get curious about our gifts. What comes easily to you that's hard for others? What activities make you lose track of time? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And here's the thing about meaningful work. It's not always big, grand gestures. Sometimes it's bringing kindness to your current job, volunteering in your spare time, or simply being present and caring in your daily interactions. Guidepost number 10. Cultivate laughter, song and dance and let go of being cool and always in control. This final guidepost might seem light, but it's actually profound. Laughter, song, and dance are expressions of pure joy. They're ways of celebrating life, of expressing emotions, of connecting with others and ourselves. But somewhere along the way, many of us learned that these expressions aren't cool, aren't professional, aren't appropriate for adults. We learned to control our joy, to dim our light, to keep our enthusiasm in check. Wholehearted people have given themselves permission to laugh loudly, to sing off key, to dance like nobody's watching, even when everybody is watching. They've learned that being cool often means being disconnected, that always being in control often means missing out on spontaneous joy. Long pause. Now let's talk about one of the most revolutionary concepts in this book, shame resilience. Brown has studied shame for decades, and here's what she's learned. Shame is the fear of disconnection. It's the voice that whispers, "You're not good enough. You don't belong. You're not worthy of love." The difference between shame and guilt is crucial. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about identity. And here's the thing. Everyone experiences shame, but some people are more resilient to it. They don't let it define them or control their lives. Brown identified 4 elements of shame resilience. First, recognizing shame and understanding its triggers. What situations, people, or experiences typically trigger shame for you? Second, practicing critical awareness, reality checking the shame messages. Are they true? Are they helpful? Would you say these things to someone you love? Third, reaching out, sharing your story with trusted people. This is crucial because shame cannot survive being spoken and met with empathy. It thrives in secrecy, silence, and self-judgment. Fourth, speaking shame, having the courage to share your experiences and ask for what you need. This breaks the power that shame holds over us. The most shame-resilient people Brown studied had one thing in common. They talked about shame. They had people in their lives who could hear their stories with empathy, without judgment, without trying to fix or solve. Long pause. Let's talk about vulnerability, because this might be the most misunderstood concept in the book. Vulnerability isn't weakness. In fact, Brown's research shows it's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and change. it's the willingness to show up when you can't control the outcome. Vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. It's that unstable feeling we get when we step out of our comfort zone, when we put ourselves out there, when we take emotional risks. Think about the last time you said, I love you first, started a difficult conversation, asked for help, stood up for something you believed in, tried something new where you might fail. That's vulnerability. And here's what's beautiful. Vulnerability is the core of meaningful human experiences. It's where joy lives, where creativity flows, where innovation happens, where love grows. But our culture has taught us that vulnerability is weakness, that we should hide our struggles, pretend we have it all together, keep our emotions in check, but Brown's research proves the opposite. The people who live the most connected, joyful, meaningful lives are the ones who have learned to be vulnerable. They've learned that you can't selectively numb emotions, that to live fully means feeling fully, both the difficult and the beautiful emotions. Long pause. So what does all this look like in real life? How do we actually live wholeheartedly? It starts with small steps, daily practices, moments of choice where we choose courage over comfort, authenticity over approval, vulnerability over perfectionism. It might look like admitting to a friend that you're struggling instead of saying you're fine when you're not. It might be trying that creative project you've been putting off, setting a boundary with someone who drains your energy, or simply speaking more kindly to yourself. Brown emphasizes that this is daily work. Some days you'll nail it, other days you'll fall back into old patterns, and that's perfectly human. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress. It's showing up again and again, even when it's hard. It's about building what she calls a shame resilience toolkit, practices and people that help you bounce back when shame tries to take hold. It might include journaling, meditation, therapy, trusted friends, creative expression, time in nature, whatever helps you remember who you are beneath the criticism and fear. It's about cultivating what she calls a vulnerability practice, gradually expanding your comfort zone, taking small risks, sharing more authentically, asking for help when you need it, saying yes to opportunities that scare you a little. And it's about choosing connection over perfectionism, choosing to let people see you, flaws and all, because that's where real love lives, not in a highlight reel, but in our honest, imperfect, beautifully human moments. Long pause. Alright, my friend, let's wrap this up. The gifts of imperfection teaches us that worthiness isn't something we earn through achievement or perfection. It's our birthright. You're worthy of love and belonging simply because you exist. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and change. It's where innovation happens, where love grows, where life gets interesting. Perfectionism isn't about excellence or high standards. It's about fear, the fear of not being good enough, and it's the enemy of authenticity and self-compassion. Shame loses its power when it's met with empathy and spoken truth. You don't have to carry your struggles alone. Connection is not only possible, but essential for healing. Your imperfections aren't flaws to be fixed, they're threads in the beautiful, complex tapestry of your humanity. They're what make you relatable, real, and worthy of connection. Authenticity is a daily practice, not a destination. It's choosing to show up as yourself, even when it's scary, even when you're not sure how you'll be received. And most importantly, you don't have to wait until you're perfect to be loved, to contribute, to matter. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. Remember, wholehearted living isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about showing up, being real, and choosing love over fear, courage over comfort, connection over perfection. So be brave with your life, be vulnerable with your heart, and let your beautiful imperfections be gifts to a world that needs your authentic voice. Thank you for spending these 15 minutes with me today, diving deep into this transformative wisdom. If this summary touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own worthiness, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What resonated most with you? Which guidepost do you want to work on first? Your sharing might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Your support means the world to me, and it keeps me creating more content like this, warm, meaningful conversations about books and ideas that can change our lives. Until next time, take care of your beautiful heart, embrace your gorgeous imperfections, and keep living wholeheartedly, one brave moment at a time.